go ahead and screen share. Of course, of course. All right, I am also recording. Can you guys see my screen? Go ahead and run tune into the stream. All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. We're going to be going through a lot of stuff with a lot of detail. I don't really have a lot of jokes that I'm going to be saying, but I really appreciate you guys all coming here. I hope you guys, leave learning something new. I learned a lot just putting this together. So the color is terrible, but it's all about the content. All right, so let's start. Okay. First thing I want to say is that we are not trying to improve our parses. No one cares about parsing well. It doesn't matter. This is a hardcore raid. This is a hardcore guild. All that we need to do to win at the end of the night is be alive. We want everyone alive at the end of every night. And if I'm being honest with you guys, 100 parses on hardcore doesn't mean anything. Okay? My 100 parses aren't even 99s on Era. They mean nothing. Hardcore is not played by the best players in the game. And the best players in the game that have parse at the top, they're almost all dead. Mac Gone Bald, Zamplug, Perp, Bald and Fat, Thought Crushing, Zapant, they've all died, and they're all amazing warriors. They're all better than me. They're better than almost anyone in this guild, and they've all died in hardcore. Some due to no fault of their own, some because they're parse-brained, or a simple mistake. Anything can happen in hardcore. You're one disconnect away from dying. Parsing well is not what this presentation is going to be about. We're not trying to improve our parse. Okay? If you play like you're trying to parse, you're going to end up on Era, where you can't parse. So everyone wins, right? If you want to parse, go to Era. Next thing I want to talk about is that Era is solved. Everything is known about this game if you dig deep enough. There is nothing new under the sun with Classic. It's been out for 5 years. We've been on the same patch for 3 years. And there's a lot of people that love this game that have done a shit ton of work to make this game approachable by a lot of people. So these are the main tools that I use. I'll be going over them a little bit. 60 upgrades is really good for planning the gear you want to buy in a GDKP. This is the tool to use that you want to scout out what gear you're going to use. Fight Club doesn't talk about Era anymore, but they've talked about Era for 2 years in that Discord, and this was the sweatiest, most try-hard players that I've ever met. The archives of this Discord are like the ancient texts. They are very, very, very important. The Warrior Sim has a lot of downsides, but it's the amazing UI. It's just the developer did an amazing job, and I love this website from a development standpoint. I think that it's really well made. I don't think the math is very accurate, but at the same time, that's okay. It's just meant to be a tool to help you get an idea. This is like a super nerdy thing. I want to talk about this one. It's the Warrior Attack Table. It breaks everything down. So if you have any questions about weapon skill, this is the place to check it out. It's backed up by data and tests, and it's going to be the reference that I'm going to use for a lot of the stuff we talk about. This is something I have pinned in the Warrior Discord. It is a very long, an incompleted document about how to play DPS Warrior in Classic. It's not a hardcore point of view, but it's extremely, extremely good. But the guy never finished it, so maybe I'll take it and finish it someday, because I really like the basis this guy has. This is something I found while preparing this. This is a document that tells you exactly how much mitigation you can expect to have against the boss. It's super, super valuable, very accurate. The math is there. The formulas are verified on Fight Club. This is a great tool. And if you ever want to look up tactics, you want to look up Bald and Fat, Suvi, or Ava Sizzle. They have probably the cleanest tactics of a hardcore raid. If you want to know how to approach any boss, those are the 3 streamers I'd recommend. Checking out their VODs, using your Twitch Prime to check out their VODs is what I'd recommend if you want to learn tactics. Okay, I mentioned this earlier. Hardcore is on 1 patch, and it's never going to change. So learning what's on this patch and how this patch works is going to be a good use of time if you want to be like a WoW tryhard. So a lot of the resources that exist online, they were done when we were on patch like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, right? Phase 4, phase 5, phase 6. None of that is the exact patch we're playing on now. Right now we're playing on what's some call phase 7, where for all of Classic until April 2021, it was weeks before the TBC pre-patch came out. The batching window was 0.4 seconds, and that informed a lot of gameplay and a lot of parses. So a lot of those parses don't even apply anymore. Like, it's a totally different ball game. The batching window being 0.1 seconds is an extremely important difference between how it was before and how it is now, which is a huge reason why we can play hardcore at all. This batching window being 0.01 seconds is extremely favorable for hardcore, and we'll talk about that a bit later. Just a couple hardcore server nuances. There is no buff cap, there's no debuff cap, and when you're getting mind control capped, it cannot backfire under any circumstances. This is just nuances of hardcore server. What are the things that I think make a good warrior? I think a warrior that can tank makes them good. I think a warrior that can position mobs, that's what I look for. I think a warrior that can understand what I'm asking them to do and internalize that and then do that. I want someone that's coming prepared with all their consumes and all their world buffs. I want someone that can DPS when they're asked to DPS if they're not having the tank. And I really want someone to be able to use their AoE shout every 10 minutes if they need to. These are what I thought were the most important things about playing a warrior in a raiding environment with a hardcore mindset. The others, I don't really care about. Nothing on this list is talking or calming anything. Like, I don't give a shit about that. I don't care if you talk in raid. Like, you don't need to communicate anything. You don't ever need to talk in raid. You just need to listen, do what I expect of you, and tank when you need to, DPS when you need to. It's that simple. They're hard, but it's straightforward. Okay, let's talk a little bit about world buffs. All right, the 8 world buffs that you can put in the Chrono Boon, alright? And they're extremely fucking strong. A full Bis warrior with no world buffs, you take the pre-Bis warrior every time. If they're gearing intelligently and they're the right race and, you know, all these little things. But that didn't fit into a sentence very well, so I just said a full Bis warrior without world buffs is weaker than a pre-Bis warrior with world buffs. The Chrono Boon Displacer costs 10 gold, stacks to 5, and when you use it, it creates another item in your inventory that can hold up to 8 buffs, okay? And when you use that item, it grants you all those world buffs all at the same time, and it's a indispensable tool for what we're trying to do with this game. There are not a lot of enchants for warrior, but you should look to be fully enchanted. Okay, so 8 strength or ZG enchant. Those are the only options in my eyes. But if you can't go either of those routes, you can go stamina. I think if you're gearing your character intelligently, 8 strength is better than 8 stamina in every case. With full world buffs, I just think 8 strength is better than 8 stamina. You can make up those stat differences more efficiently by picking more intelligent pieces of gear. If you think stamina is better than strength, then put on Helm of the Executioner. That's how important strength is for your damage. We'll talk about the stat weights a little bit later, but And notice that 100 HP enchant is actually the worst enchant to put on your helm or your leg. 8 stamina gives you 15 more health on average than 100 HP does, because 100 HP does not scale with Fengus, with Molder's Moxie, it doesn't scale with ZG, and it doesn't scale with Kings. And stamina scales with all 3 of those, so it's better. Surprising to some, it's better. Shoulder enchants, we got the Saffron enchant. It's a long shot for some. The ZG Exalted shoulder enchant, and if you don't have either of those, you should get the Argent Dawn enchant. Fire Res is the only real option for Argent Dawn, and if you're Exalted, I don't know how you're Exalted, but you're not ZG Exalted, you can get Chromatic Resistance. Not a very good enchant at all. So Cloak is this is where we get some opinions, right? Where you can kind of choose where you want to go, right? You can go Subtlety for 2% threat reduction, or you can go 3 Agi. Personally, as an Alliance player, 3 Agi is just better. The 2% Cloak enchant doesn't do enough on pull to change your gameplay loop. So you're just over the aggregate going to do less damage than 3 Agi. It's a pretty small enchant. Maybe I'm just coping because it's so much cheaper to go 3 Agi, but I genuinely would go 3 Agi every time. And dodge is not worth considering as a DPS warrior. Chest options, you have 100 health, viable, but it's 100 health. Remember, we talked about how 100 health has its issues, but 8 stamina, or rather 4 stats, it scales with DMT, it scales with ZG, it scales with Kings. So you might think like, oh, 40 health versus 100 health. That's not the case. 4 stats is actually 55 health versus 100 health. 4 stats is the only choice here. I talked about why strength is better than stamina. We'll get into more of that later. You also get Agi. I urge you to go 4 stats every time. If you're building your character efficiently and you're having the right items in every slot, 4 stats will beat out 100 health every time. Wrist options, I've given my opinion, 9 strength or 9 stamina. I think 9 strength for DPS warrior, no brainer. Hand options, we'll talk about this a bit more later. 15 Agi will eventually be better than 7 strength, but there are instances where 7 strength is better than 15 Agi. But we'll talk about that more later. And I recommend 15 agility for the warriors in this call. Boot options, 7 stamina, 7 agility. This one's a bit more difficult to say because Agi is not as good as strength. We'll talk about the exact stat weights a bit later. 7 stamina is perfectly viable because Agi is not as good as strength. Movement speed, you don't need it. You have a 2-hour ZG buff. You are playing for raid. If you're gonna put movement speed on a pair of boots, put it on a second pair of boots. Put your spurs. Movement speed boots are like spurs. They're for PvP. They're for PvP. PvP and walking through DMT. And weapon, there's only Crusader. It's the only option. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our 2 Fury specs. Is this going to open? Okay, so we have the highest theoretical DPS output, improved execute. This is the Juicer talent. This talent is extremely fucking good. Okay, Impale kind of sucks cock. Yeah. Oh, let me change to screen 2. That should work. Does this work better? Thank you for mentioning that. That's good. I was mentioning this spreadsheet earlier. Yeah. Thanks, man. Okay, so Imp Execute is actually more DPS than Impale. Impale is fucking terrible. It's highest theoretical DPS. You should go it for highest theoretical DPS, but genuinely, it's not a very strong talent because it only works on Heroic Strike, Bloodthirst, Whirlwind, Execute. But it's good. It's good. Imp Execute is extremely powerful. We'll talk about Execute in depth later. But the main flex point that we'll look at here is getting this talent. It's called Unbridled Wrath, okay? It doesn't say in game, but the truth is it's a 40% chance to get 1 rage when you deal weapon damage. So it's 1 rage. It's good. It's pure DPS from an execute point of view. You cannot say it does less damage. It can only help. But it's not a lot of rage. It doesn't equate to a lot of damage, and it's 5 points. And we will talk in depth later about how good Demo Shout is. This is an extremely powerful talent. I would highly recommend some warriors in the raid go this talent. We'll talk about Imp Demo a lot. I'm not going to go into these Fury prots, but I put them here. Let's move on. This is Abyss Warrior. Let's open it up to the call. Let's start with the helmet. What's the helmet? Anyone? Shoulders. Chest. Yeah. Plate A-bomb, ribcage. Belt. Yeah, belt of never-ending agony. That's good. Gloves. Wrong. Annihilation. Yeah, I think someone said that. Goa. Yeah, they're Goa. Hell yeah, the purple bug. This is color scheme. All right, legs. Yeah, the little clown legs. And what are the boots? The Shadow Flame. Okay, and of course the swords. Okay, all right. What are these bracers? See them right here. Right here. Yeah. No. Vengeance. Vengeance Sims won higher in this setup I did. They were close. It's all opinion. It's totally rounding errors. You can I'll go through each of the BIS item and their alternatives and their viable options. But yeah, Vengeance and then the swords. Let's quickly mention the swords. And all right, and who is this troll emulating? It's Wet Lips. Okay, moving on. All right, so I was gonna put more effort into this graphic, but fuck it. You know, arms, fury, prot. All right, abilities and the rotation. Okay, the rotation is simple. You sunder if it has fewer than 5 sunders. We'll talk more about when to sunder and when not to sunder. You want a Bloodthirst on cooldown. You want to hit execute. You want a whirlwind after execute, and then last prio is heroic strike. And if battle shot's about to fall, you do it with excess rage. You do want to fill globals with battle shout whenever you can, because it only has the last 2 minutes. It will fall off periodically. I don't have a slide about common mistakes. I'll just briefly mention some common mistakes with the rotation. Bloodthirst is very easy to delay. There are so many abilities that Warrior has, so many buttons you can press, and there's so many situations to press all those buttons. It's so easy to make a simple mistake to delay your Bloodthirst by even like just a fraction of a second. But you really want to, there are all sorts of abilities that put you on global cooldown that will delay your Bloodthirst. And we'll talk about delaying your Bloodthirst, but the most common mistake is not to put yourself on global cooldown, but to starve yourself of rage. If you heroic strike too much, if you whirlwind without thinking about the Bloodthirst that's coming up, you'll literally not have enough rage to Bloodthirst. Not having enough rage to Bloodthirst is the most common mistake I see new warriors making. You really want to control your heroic strikes. Think about how much rage you have at a given moment and make a conscious decision if you should heroic strike or not. Bloodthirst is a 6-second cooldown. Let's take a closer look. Oh, Sunder Armor. 7 warriors need to sunder a single target to have a 99% chance for it to have 5 sunders. This is extremely important for the raid's damage. It's extremely important for your damage, and I urge you to be one of the 7 warriors. If you're late to a fight and you see 5 sunders on the target, you don't have to sunder. You can fucking Bloodthirst it. It's okay. But try to be one of those first 7 warriors to the target, putting that sunder on. Alright. Why is Bloodthirst So important. Okay? It doesn't have any base damage on it. It's not like Mortal Strike. It's not like does a percent of your weapon damage plus 45. It says does instant damage equal to 45% of your current attack power. What do the world buffs give? Well, one of them gives 200 attack power. Another of them gives 140 attack power. ZG gives you like 100 strength. Like your attack power. Crusader gives you 100 strength. The other Crusader gives you another 100 strength. The amount of attack power you're getting in a raid, it's insane. You get up to like 3,000 attack power in fucking blue gear. It's insane how much attack power you get, and it just scales linearly with attack power. So it means nothing in the game can hit as hard as a Bloodthirst if you have enough attack power. Nothing is as strong as Bloodthirst. And if you have fewer than 9 casts per minute of Bloodthirst in an encounter, you need to look at your rotation. 9 casts per minute is what you should be looking for in any encounter. 9 casts per minute. You can use it at any stance, which makes it extremely good for tanking as well as DPS, which also makes battle stance an extremely viable stance to DPS in, and doesn't inflict a 10% damage penalty on you. And it only has a 6-second cooldown. You can hit it as much as you can. But it costs 30 rage. That's a lot of rage. It's a big portion of your pool, and you only have 100 to work with. There's no way to increase 100. Whirlwind costs 25 rage and can only be used in Berserker stance. Makes it a lot worse than Bloodthirst just because of the Berserker stance modifier. It doesn't say this, but the way Whirlwind damage works is this formula here, which is your weapon swing, which is based off of like what it says on the tooltip, right? It says like 87 to 150 or something, right? This is what that weapon swing variable is. And then it's how fast is your weapon times attack power with a modifier. So that means that your attack power matters, but it matters a lot less than 45%. So say you have a 1.0 weapon. All right, that means that your Whirlwind is scaling with attack power at a rate of about 0.05, 0.07. It's really low attack power scaling. It's about 10 times less attack power scaling than Bloodthirst. But if you say you have a 3-5 two-hander, now you're scaling about 25% attack power. That's pretty good. That's about half of Bloodthirst. But that's with a like giga two-hander. So even with a super slow weapon, Bloodthirst is scaling more than twice as hard as Whirlwind on a single target. So here are the situations when you want a Bloodthirst and when you want to use Whirlwind. All right. So we have a couple specs that you can do. Two-handed Fury, very rare, very bad. You don't see it a lot. You see the black line is Bloodthirst, right? And these lines are Whirlwind. So this is the number of targets. So you see with one target, there's actually, if you have low attack power, Whirlwind is just fucking stronger than Bloodthirst with a two-hander, like right here, than a single target. If you're like not world buffed, you have like 700, 800 attack power, Whirlwind is actually hitting harder than Bloodthirst. But very quickly, about 1250 attack power, Whirlwind and Bloodthirst are equal, and then Bloodthirst gets ahead of Whirlwind eventually, as you get into more reasonable attack power values like 2000 in raid. But the second you're hitting 2 targets with Whirlwind, Whirlwind is way stronger than Bloodthirst. But this is two-handed Fury. This is exactly what you'd expect. You'd expect Whirlwind to be strong with a two-hander. You'd expect a Whirlwind over Bloodthirst, and no one is really running this spec in raid. So our main considerations are these two graphs. You have a slow main hand, you got a fast main hand, right? And the bottom line is that if you have a fast main hand, aka lower than 2.1 speed, you need 3 targets with Whirlwind for it to be as good as a Bloodthirst. And in hardcore, we don't want to kill 3 targets at the same time. We want to kill 1 target as quickly as possible. The damage pattern on Bloodthirst is better. Even in cleave, in 2-target cleave, Bloodthirst is better than Whirlwind. That's the point I'm trying to make here, is that if you have just 2,500 attack power, you are literally doing more damage with a slow main hand, by the way. 2,500 attack power is a very reasonable attack power to get to in Raid. You're doing more damage with Bloodthirst than Whirlwind, even in 2-target cleave. That's how good Bloodthirst is. And then if you have a fast main hand, it should be obvious. Like you should not be Whirlwinding over Bloodthirst with a dagger or like a super fast sword. Okay. I kind of like talked about this, but I was trying to kind of prove it with the graph. So basically, you need it's win to what the thresholds are, right? So if you have like a 2/6 main hand and less than 2,500 attack power, you should Whirlwind if there are 2 more targets for a pure amount of damage. But otherwise, it's never better to Whirlwind in 2 targets. You need 2/4 and less than 2.5k attack power. And a lot of you guys are above 2.5k attack power most of the time in Raid, especially once you get those Crusader procs running, because Crusaders are giving you like hundreds of attack power. You should take a look at your attack power next time you're in Raid and see how high it gets. Okay, bottom line. Using any ability like Berserker Rage, like Death Wish, like Recklessness, like Whirlwind, any of these abilities, if it clips your Bloodthirst, you're making a mistake. Even Execute. That this is might be surprising to some people, but Execute should be replaced by Bloodthirst if Bloodthirst is up. This is going to depend on your attack power, but it's not a lot of attack power you need to every 6 seconds you keep Bloodthirsting even when you're supposed to be executing. So the exception is you don't have enough rage to hit Bloodthirst, but you have enough rage to execute. Always fill your global. Always fill your global. If you don't have enough rage to Bloodthirst, you send the execute. You do not wait to get that rage, because you don't know how long you have to wait to get that rage. You could have to wait another 2 seconds, in which case you could have executed twice. The 10 rage execute, I don't know if I have a slide on this, but the 10 rage execute is equal to a 4,000 attack power Bloodthirst. But the rage conversion that happens after 10 rage is really fucking bad compared to the 30 rage conversion that Bloodthirst is doing for you. So a 10 rage execute is hitting like 600 damage base, and your 30 rage and a 30 rage execute it's only adding 300 damage. So like you're spending 20 rage to get 300 damage. You're getting like 15 damage per rage versus 60 damage per rage. So hitting execute rather than nothing at all, totally worth it. But don't be doing heroic strikes in execute phase. It's another common mistake. But yeah, Death Wish and Recklessness put you on the global cooldown. You really want to time your Death Wish in such a way that you're not missing Bloodthirst. It's another common mistake I see a lot. Flurry, not much to talk about here. It's a passive. It's why crit is so fucking good on Warrior. It's just insanely strong. But it's a passive. You can't really play around it. It's just this is like the engine of Fury. This is why Fury is so strong. You basically just have a 30% attack speed buff all the time. Improved overpower talent and using overpower at all. Even if you play perfectly, it's better to go heroic strike talent than it is to go overpower. Even if you're using improved overpower. But improved overpower is really popular because it's very strong in PvP. That's basically the only reason to go. It's really strong against rogues in the open world. But from raid perspective, like using overpower is a DPS increase, but using the improved overpower talent is a DPS loss. Using a really slow main hand is going to make overpower more impactful to try and use. So if you have less than 25 rage, you should definitely go for an overpower. If you're not going to clip your Bloodthirst and you have less than 25 rage, you can swap stance, overpower, and swap back in theoretically like 0.1 seconds and lose no rage. That's what the sim is doing, by the way. That's and it's still only like a 5 to 10 DPS increase. So if you're not going to lose rage and you're really good at swapping there back and forth, then 100% go for it. It's a pure DPS gain. It is difficult to do. There's probably something more important that demands your attention, especially in hardcore. But it is 100% a DPS increase. And this part right here, the worse your gear is. Sorry about that. The worse your gear is, and the less world buffs you have, the more impactful that 10, 15 DPS increase you're getting is going to be. Because, 15 plus 15 when you're doing 500 DPS, that's a good percentage gain. That's like 2-3%. But if you're doing 2,000 DPS and you're gaining like 9 damage, it's not really worth mentioning. Berserker Rage is typically just used for fear breaks, but when you take damage, you generate more rage. So there are some fights where you're going to take damage, where this is really good if you can weave it in during an execute phase, because it just gives you more damage, more rage in your execute, just more damage. So Berserker Rage is going to be extremely good. Let's talk about a couple fights where it's good. Huhuran, extremely strong there. You're taking a lot of damage. It can really buff your DPS. If you're doing 4 Horsemen when you're about to take the 3rd or 4th mark, it does 3,000 damage on the 3rd mark and 5,000 on the 4th mark. If you catch one of those marks with Berserker Rage, it's a huge amount of rage that you're getting. When you're in Fire Maw, when you're finishing Fire Maw and you're taking a lot of damage from the buffet, you can get a lot of damage from using Berserker Rage. Veil, it kind of sucks because you're just getting so much rage, but you don't have infinite rage on Veil. You're just gaining rage at an insane rate. So it can give you a little bit of rage. If you're just going to send a pummel in your global, you might as well use Berserker Rage instead. It'll probably give you more damage than pummel. So basically, sometimes it's good, but don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to miss Bloodthirst because of it, ever. If you're going to use it on a fear break, try and do it in advance between your Bloodthirsts. Anticipate when the fear is going to come out, and don't delay Bloodthirst because you're trying to break a fear. Like, already have that fear broken. I want to talk a little bit about DPSing and battle stance. DPSing and battle stance is actually only a DPS loss of about 50 to 100 flat. It doesn't even... It's like if you have really good gear, it's about 100 DPS loss. If you have really bad gear and no world buffs, it's about a 50 DPS loss. So the scaling DPS loss of DPSing and battle stance is not a percentage. It's actually kind of like a flat loss. And what is Berserker Stance giving you? It's giving you 3% crit. Well, we'll talk about how bad 3% crit is later on in the slides, but yeah. What it really does is allow you to cast Whirlwind. And as we talked about, Whirlwind kind of sucks too. Compared to Bloodthirst, it's not very important. So missing 3% crit and missing a chance to Whirlwind, Battle Stance can fucking crank very hard. You still gain everything else. You gain the ability to charge. You gain the ability to thunderclap. It is an extremely powerful stance. You gain the ability to overpower. It's really good, especially with Tac Mastery. This macro here, you can change this to say cast Berserker Stance. Basically, it allows you to charge and just immediately turn into another stance. And even if you're Fury Prot, you can retain the rage. I put this macro in the macro section at the end of the PowerPoint. Yeah, if you're gonna do an encounter where you're just taking more damage, you should, in hardcore, you should really be thinking about being in battle stance if you know you're gonna be taking damage. Like, Berserker Stance causes you to take 10% more damage, and it's a pretty minor DPS loss overall. It's about 5% DPS loss in the aggregate. And someone's got to Thunderclap until we get Thunder Fury. Challenging Shout. This is an extremely powerful spell that Warriors have, but it costs 5 rage to use. It's not a lot of rage, but it's not free. You know, just remember, it is 5 rage. It's a spell, and its radius is 10 yards. If you think about the area of a circle, it's pi r squared. That means that the radius, the effective surface area of your Challenging Shout, is 314 yards. That is massive. This ability, if something's not in melee range of you, if it's running away from you and you need to get it, well, Challenging Shout will catch it. It's 10 yards. A hunter can be shooting you with his fucking bow, and you could Challenging Shout him. It's that far of a range. It's really powerful with Lip. They both last 6 seconds. As an Alliance player, you should really be asking for Blessing of Protections to do your Lips, because it's 10 seconds and it's free. It's a 3-minute cooldown. If you're a tank like me, you have Cancel Aura, Blessing of Protection into all your macros in case someone makes a mistake and bops you when you're trying to tank a boss, so it gets canceled quickly. As a DPS warrior, you don't need those macros, and you should be asking and receiving Blessing of Protections when you're doing Challenging Shouts. But Lip is perfectly fine. Okay. Execute. Alright. I mentioned this number earlier, but if you have improved Execute, which is an extremely powerful talent, reduces the minimum rage to cast Execute by 5, it makes 30 rage Execute do exactly the amount of damage a 2000 attack power Bloodthirst will do, 900 base. Okay? Execute is always worth using over Whirlwind. Whirlwind is never better. You should never Heroic Strike in Execute phase unless you're DQing your Heroic Strike to gain hit rating, which is a very minor DPS increase. We'll talk about that later. And something that is not respected, well known, expected maybe, Execute damage does more threat than normal damage. When you're in Berserker stance, Battle stance, it has a 0.8 flat threat modifier, so if you do 100 damage, well, you only generate 80 threat. Execute does just 25% more threat with the damage you deal. So it actually kind of works out, because it's a 0.8 flat threat mod that Execute damage actually does 1 threat per damage, but all the other damage you do is actually has a 20% reduction in threat. So if you're threat capped, don't Execute. You'll generate more threat than you're gaining damage. With improved Execute, the initial conversion rate is 60 damage per rage. That's extremely good. The bonus damage from the additional rage is 4 times worse. It's 1 rage is 15 damage. So a 10 rage Execute is extremely good. And then if you do a 50 rage Execute, that's only doing twice as much damage. So that extra 40 rage you're dumping is 4 times less efficient than that initial 10 rage you're dumping. So you could do one. If you could choose to not convert your rage into Execute, you would often not do so, because you would be able to deal more damage with that rage in other ways. But that's not the way the game works. This is not a relevant mention, but I'm going to say it anyway. Any rage you gain during the batching window is consumed by Execute, but not converted into extra damage. This was more relevant when the batching window was 0.4 seconds. It's in fact extremely relevant, and it's one of the reasons that a lot of those damage numbers that they were putting up are so impressive, is that this was happening to them. And you'll notice that like a lot of the top damage numbers from 2021 are actually happening the week or two our patch came out and this batching window was removed, and it's because this is so impactful. So it's just kind of, I just thought that was kind of neat part of history for Warrior. I want to throw in there. I think I said this number earlier, but a 10 rage Execute is equivalent to a 4,000 attack power Bloodthirst. It's that efficient damage per rage, and it only costs 10, making it better. But Execute doesn't scale with attack power at all. It's only rage. A level 56 warrior, I think that's the rank you get, rank 6 execute, he can do as much damage with execute as a level 60 warrior in full base, because execute only looks at the amount of rage you have, the amount of armor the enemy has. It doesn't look at anything but your rage. So let me clear up some misconceptions. Deathwish is a big reason why Fury Warrior is so dominant, and the spec is so specific. You need to get this talent. It has downsides, right? It has a 20% armor reduction, which is true, and it also says that it has a 20% like resistance reduction. But for some reason, that doesn't actually happen. Your resistances actually don't go down. I don't know why that works, but it says it does, and it doesn't. So whatever. So use it on Saffron, use it on Huhuron. You're not losing any spell resistance, even though it says it is. It is a 20% damage increase, and that's all, which makes it's kind of like a double DMF. So your executes, it's just 20% more damage. All the white swings you're doing, 20% more damage. I'm going to talk about the rage generation formula a bit later, but it's kind of simple. 15 damage from a white swing is 1 rage at level 60. So doing 20% more damage with your white swings means you get 20% more rage from your attacks, which means you have greater autonomy in the way you want to conduct your rotation. It's kind of a fight-by-fight idea on how you want to Death Wish, but generally you want to Death Wish in a way that is good for you, rather than just popping it when you see everyone else pop it. So my general suggestion is you want to Sunder, Bloodthirst, and then Death Wish, because I mentioned this before, you don't want to delay your Bloodthirst for any reason. So Death Wish lasts 30 seconds, right? Bloodthirst has a 6-second cooldown. 30 divided by 6 is 5. You can get 5 Bloodthirsts in your Death Wish. You should always strive to get 5 Bloodthirsts in your Death Wish. If you're not getting 5 Bloodthirsts in your Death Wish, you're missing out on a entire Bloodthirst most of the time. It's a lot of damage to be missing out on. You generally want to do it in the last 30 seconds, but because Bloodthirst is so strong, if you get 2 Crusader procs, you can just send Death Wish, and it doesn't even matter. It will work out just fine. Those 15 seconds of Crusader are good to go. It does cost 10 rage to use, but you can use it while you're feared, and it breaks fears during its duration. And something that's really fucking badass about it is you can use it in defensive stance, so it's like really good for tanking. Recklessness, it raises your critical strike by 100%. So you look at your character sheet, next time you wreck, you're at like 150% crit. It's fucking crazy. But major downside, it just increases the damage you take by 20%, and it can only be used in Berserker Stance. Berserker Stance has a 10% damage taken mod. Recklessness increases the damage you take by 20%. These are multiplicative, so you're actually taking more than 30% increased damage taken when you're in this state. It's closer to 40% increased damage. So you will take a lot. Any damage, just 40% more. Like getting crit by a boss in this state, instant death, anytime. Even the simplest, easiest boss, this can kill you. Being Berserker Stance, Recklessness. It does break fear, not very important. 30-minute cooldown. Something to note, if you're paying attention, you'll actually see you don't crit everything when you're in Recklessness, which is because it doesn't affect your glancing chance. Your white swings still glance at a 40% rate even when you're in Recklessness. So don't be surprised when you pop Rec and you're seeing non-crits on your white swings. It's because of glance. Glances cannot be converted into crit, even when you're at 150% crit. It's global cooldown. Don't delay your Bloodthirst using Recklessness. Recklessness lasts 15 seconds. 15 divided by 6, that's 2. You should be getting at least 2 preferably 3 bloodthirsts in your recklessness. I think I made some. I think you can get 6 bloodthirsts in your death wish. Is that right? 1, 7, 13, 17, 23, 29. It's pretty tight. Hold on. 1, 7, 13, 19. No, it's still 5. 5 bloodthirsts in your death wish window. That's all you can do. In a 15-second window, you can do 1, 7, 13. You can get 3 in recklessness. Yeah, you can't get 6 bloodthirsts in death wish, and you can get 3 bloodthirsts in recklessness. You get a shit ton of rage when you're wrecking. You get so much rage, so you should have no excuse to not be bloodthirsting 3 times in your recklessness period. Missing out a single bloodthirst is so bad, so bad. So you want to use this when. So think about, do a mental experiment. You actually only have 13.5 seconds to make decisions with bloodthirst, right? So you need to have recklessness in such a way where bloodthirst is up right away. You're 1.5 seconds in the recklessness, you're hitting bloodthirst, right? You're 7.5 seconds in the recklessness, you're hitting the next one. You're 13.5 seconds in, you're hitting the next one. So what I'm saying is if you bloodthirst, death wish, recklessness, you will never get that 3rd bloodthirst off in recklessness. You need to bloodthirst, death wish, do like a whirlwind or something, and then recklessness, so that you can get 3 bloodthirsts off under rec. Otherwise, you're only going to get 2. If you do, I already said it, so let's move on. You don't want to be doing recklessness where you're going to be taking damage ever, unless you're going to be in defensive stance. You mitigate a lot of this damage penalty you're inflicting on yourself by being in defensive stance. If you're going to be in berserker stance and use recklessness, you better not be taking any damage, or you're just going to die. You definitely want to use recklessness 1.5 seconds before bloodthirst. Anytime between 2.9 seconds and 1.5 is the ideal time to recklessness. You don't need to get too exact about it, but that just know that that's optimal. Yeah, right here. This requires you to use recklessness when bloodthirst is available in the next 3 seconds. Okay. Using recklessness is kind of fucking dumb. I'm going to be honest with you. There are very few times where you actually should use this ability. If you get hit in berserker stance with recklessness, you're just going to die. Like, it doesn't matter how much gear you have. It doesn't matter how easy the content is. You're taking so much more damage in this state. It's extremely dangerous. But there are times where it's correct. Absolutely. If there's a threat drop, don't use rec. It's that simple. If there's any mechanic in the encounter that you're doing that has anything to do with threat drops or threat reduction or mind controls, you just don't use recklessness. It's not worth it. Okay. Let's look at this parse from a number 1 warrior on Era playing Patchwork. Okay. He didn't start the fight for 5.5 seconds. He was 5.5 seconds late to the fight. Okay? His first global was Sunder Armor. I don't think you can see it, but his first global was Sunder Armor. His next global was Bloodthirst, then it was Whirlwind. Okay? 13.5 seconds, he does another Bloodthirst. Let's look at what happens here. Whirlwind becomes available for use at 19.25 seconds. But he doesn't use Whirlwind until 28.895 seconds. I'm going to open this up to the classroom so I can get a drink. Why is he doing this? Exactly. He didn't use Whirlwind even though it was up because it would have delayed his Bloodthirst. So how much would using Whirlwind have delayed his Bloodthirst by, Letty? Well, we have the numbers here, right? He used Bloodthirst he could have used it at 19.98, right? And, yeah, by about 1 second. 1.1 seconds, something like that. So even though he only would have delayed his Bloodthirst by like half a second at that. He didn't do it. He didn't Whirlwind. This happens every single time you're DPSing on Warrior. The question of, do I go for my third Bloodthirst and hold my GCD, or do I just hit the fucking button that lit up? Whirlwind's available, Bloodthirst isn't. I should just Whirlwind. But it really depends on his rage. You could see how many heroic strikes he's getting off. He's really this guy's got rage for days. He's getting a lot of crits with his offhand type situation, right? So it's a judgment call based on your current rage value, right? Hamstrings or heroic strike's going to cost about 12 rage, and Whirlwind's going to cost about 25, and you need 30 to Bloodthirst. So if you it doesn't even matter like how much rage he had. You just but it's like this situation happens so much. So it's like, do I hit Whirlwind because it's up and Bloodthirst isn't, or do I just wait for the Bloodthirst to be up? And the truth is you wait for the Bloodthirst to be up, even though you're only gaining about half of a second on your Bloodthirst, right? Anything that delays Bloodthirst is generally bad. I just want to mention that he is 5.5 seconds late to this fight. He does not DPS until almost 6 seconds into the fight. He probably doesn't even fucking attack until 6 seconds into the fight. His first global is Fetish of the Sand Reaver. And this is the top DPS anyone ever did on Patchwork. He's using a 0 DPS trinket. And he didn't start for 6 seconds. And this is the best anyone ever did on this fight. So, don't be afraid to wait 6 seconds to fight a boss. You can still be number 1 in the world. Alright, moving on. Shield Wall. This ability, it's strong. It's strong, but it only lasts 10 seconds. It's 75% damage reduction from anything, but it's short. It's a global cooldown. You need a shield to turn it on. If you don't have a shield on, putting your shield on puts you on global cooldown, which means you cannot shield wall for another 1.5 seconds. You also have to be in defensive stance to use a shield wall. So if you're dual wielding in Berserker stance, you are at least 1.5 seconds, and probably more because you're human, to popping a shield wall. But we'll talk about how to swap to a shield in combat later. But basically, you just do /stop cast. It allows you to stop queuing your heroic strike, instantly equip your shield. At that point, you're on a global cooldown, but you can change stances while you're on global cooldown. Stances have their own rogue-like cooldown of 1 second, and you can pop shield wall as quickly as 1.5 seconds while dual wielding Berserker stance. But it's it's a lot of buttons. It's a lot to do, and one macro is not going to get you there. Macros are not the answer. Just doing your keybinds is the only way you'll get it off quickly. Once you've popped shield wall, you don't need to keep the shield on. You can go right back to dual wielding after using shield wall, and that is what you absolutely should do when you shield wall. You should just start dual wielding, because there is nothing to be gained once you have a fucking 75% flat damage reduction going. Like that's gonna do it for you. That's all you really need. Intimidating Shout is not good in raiding. If you could unlearn it, you would. All it does is get used when you're mind controlled and fear the fucking 4 people. It sucks, but you probably learned it. I learned it. It's fine. Don't keybind this, in my opinion, just so you don't accidentally use it. You can use it in any stance, and the initial target cowers instead of running. So it can be used on as an interrupt if it's only hitting one target. Like if someone else gets mind controlled, you can fear them. I didn't mention this, but it costs 20 rage, which is kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot. 20 rage is a lot for something that doesn't do any damage. So Yeah, even when someone gets mind controlled, use magic dust. Don't use this ability. It costs too much rage. It's a global cooldown. Just use magic dust. It's so much stronger. Let's talk about buffs and consumes. The buffs. We got paladin buffs. It's your responsibility, not the paladins, to have a paladin buff. All right. If you want kings, you have to ask the paladin who's responsible for buffing kings to buff you with kings. If you don't have it in fight, just whisper them. You can type /PP blessings in game with the paladin power add-on to find out who is responsible for your buff, and you should absolutely whisper them. If a paladin doesn't have paladin power, just let the raid leader know, and they'll be kicked instantly until they get it. This add-on is absolutely required for paladins to raid. It's expected that they have it. You should get it too to see who is responsible for buffing you, and you should be the one making sure you have salve. You should have an add-on to track if you have salve, and if you don't have it, you whisper. You don't say, "I don't have salve" in raid. You find out who is supposed to do it for you, and you whisper that person, and then guess what? They fucking put it on you. It's very simple. Okay. Bop is OP. Alliance is OP. This is news to no one. But you can't attack while you have it. So it kind of sucks for that reason. But it can save your life. This is why Lip AoE Taunt is kind of preferable, just from a damage point of view. Like, you can't attack while you're bopped, but like, it's a very, like, you're only Lip AoE shouting on trash, so you don't really need to worry too much about doing reduced damage because of bop. Something to mention is that you can do spells while you're bopped, so you can taunt and challenge and shout, but you can't mocking blow. So just something to think about. Let's quickly run through the offensive consumes. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about these. This is like the first thing you learn when you play War. You fucking ignore all that other shit, but you're like, yeah, Roids, 25 strength. That's what I'm fucking talking about. Juju power, 30 strength. Juju might, 40 attack power. 52 if someone with inner fire does it for you. Mongoose, 25 attitude, 2 crit. Elemental sharpening stones, 2 crit. Dark desire, 2% hit. Smoked desert dumplings, 25 strength. Dragon breath chili has a chance to do spell-based damage. Didn't mention this, but you can get Flask of Supreme Power and Greater Arcane Elixir, as well as Elixir of Firepower for extremely trivial damage increases in certain situations. Since we have no buff cap, feel free to get these. They'll have very marginal value compared to the ones on this list. Roids is very risky. It is 25 strength. It's really good, but Spirit of Zanza is 50 stamina. We'll talk about this more, but when you're efficiently building your warrior out, you will value strength slightly above stamina, but not at a rate of 2x. So when you're considering all the sources of strength that you're getting as a warrior and all the sources of stamina, the Spirit of Zanza is just a more efficient use of this buff slot than Roids is. But depending on the raid, you can absolutely use Roids for something like a Molten Core, a Blackwing Lair, certain encounters. Roids is gonna be perfectly acceptable. And if you're building your warrior in a certain way where you feel comfortable with the amount of health you have, like you're in a 20-man and you have a flask of Titans going, like go for Roids. It's 25 strength. That's a lot of strength. That's a lot of damage. But just be aware that you're sacrificing 50 stamina. So just think about when you're looking at your gear, you should probably be using fucking 8 strength enchants on your helm and your legs if you're using Roids, because guess what? That was the more efficient way to get strength than Roids was. Not as many defensive consumables, but you should strive to have all of them. We have Rumsey Rum, 15 stamina, Elixir of Fortitude, 120 health. Kind of weak, doesn't scale. We've talked about how granting direct health doesn't scale very well. Spear Defense is 450 armor, Tender Wolf Steak is 12 stam, Chops is 25. They don't stack. You kind of have to pick which one, and Chops are extremely expensive and resource intensive to get, and they only last 15 minutes. So don't expect to ever be using Chops for 13 extra stam. But you really could you really could go get a 5-man out and just farm Chops for 2 hours, and you'd be good. The whole 5-man would be good for a week. It's 13 stamina, something to consider. That's the Isle of Dread Chimeras. Yep, we have connections in HC Elite and Purpose that will cook these for us if you want to get them. 13. Yeah, the boss does like a chain lightning, so something to be cautious of. You definitely want to prepare for it. I mentioned this in the last slide. Spirit of Zanza, 50 stam. We talked about how good stamina is because it scales with 3 different things. Kings, Moxie. I'm sorry, it's Moxie, Kings, and ZG. So it's actually 25% more stamina. It is like 13 extra stam, so it's like 63. Flask of the Titans. We talked about how health scaling bonuses are not very good. This one's fucking 1200. Which is an incredibly large amount of health. Just to give you some perspective, this item in TBC, the level 70 version of this item gives 500 health. The Wrath of the Lich King version of this item gives 1300 health. The Cataclysm version of this item gives 5000 health. This item is not scaled correctly. This item is too strong. It costs about 40 gold to get the mats for, and it's by far the most important consume to use. It's 1200 health. It just fucking kicks the piss out of all these other, like, you could get all these, but if just using a Titans, you're better off. It's insanely strong. The main downside of Titans is that when you Petri, and we'll talk about why Petri is so good on DPS warriors, you lose your Titans. It's gone. So gold pay to win in hardcore. Like using the Titans and using Petris are extremely powerful, and they cost a ton of gold. But having both going will drastically increase your. No, that is incorrect. It's 40 gold. But thank you for your comment. Engineering uses. Masterwork, Advanced, and Normal Target Dummies. Normal Target Dummies are level 17 NPCs, Advanced are 37, and Masterwork are 57, if you want to think about how the hit table works. They have 0 armor, they have 700, 1700, and 3700 health. They can be bopped. They do a fixate, and they like do an enmity-based threat every 3 seconds after. So they'll do a fixate initially, and then it'll fade, and then they'll do enmity-based threat from there. So they're really good initially, but they don't really stay good. But seriously, try bopping a target dummy. It's fucking crazy how much damage a target dummy can mitigate. This is something we did in Wrath all the time. We would get the Masterwork target dummy and just bop it, and it would just mitigate an entire mechanic. It's amazing. Sapper, really strong. 5-minute cooldown. Dense Dynamite, 5-yard radius, long range, cast time. When you use Dynamite, it puts Sapper on cooldown, and when you use Sapper, it puts Dynamite on cooldown, but only on its own cooldown. So Dense Dynamite will put Goblin Sapper on cooldown for 1 minute, and Goblin Sapper will put Dense Dynamite on cooldown for 1 minute. So it all works out. Let's just talk about a couple cool items. Torch of Holy Flame. You can use this in your offhand to reduce armor by 50 on the target. Strat Holy Water scales with spell power. It has a shared cooldown with Dynamite and grenades, but yeah, if you're using like Flask of Supreme Power and Greater Arcane Elixir, this item just goes fucking crazy with the damage it can do. And it has a 10-yard radius. So we talked about 10-yard radiuses with the AoE shout. Dynamite, I don't know if you can visualize the dynamite in your head, how big it is. Stronghold Holy Water is twice the radius, which means it is, well, the way area works, it's about 4 times, as big. MRP, it has a variable amount of rage it's going to give you, and it has a 60 strength buff. But it does put all your other potions on cooldown for 2 minutes. The best use of MRP is not to be like, I fucking rage charged myself using Heroic Strike. Let me get the 60 strength buff and then I can Bloodthirst because I fucked up. Like, you just use it to turn that 45 to 75 rage into an execute. You take all like 50 or 60 of that rage and you just turn it into extra damage at a rate of 1 to 15. Let's look at the graph here. Okay. Breaking it all down, you can see that just using it for the rage gives you like a 950 flat damage increase. So that's like less damage than using bolts from Strat Undead on like 6 targets. So, and this is the best use of it. So it's kind of dog shit, honestly. It's pretty bad. It's giving you like less DPS than like DPSing in like Battle Stance. So it is optimal for damage. If you're going for most damage, it is good. But I would say that what makes MRP good is tanking, is giving yourself rage when you don't have any to have a really strong opener on a boss as a tank. Using it for damage is it just doesn't add that much damage for you because it's 60 strength but only for 20 seconds. The rage you get, you're best off turning it into an execute, and you're only getting 1 to 15 conversion on that rage. So 75 rage times 15, or let's do 50 times 15. It's a bit more obvious. You're gaining about 750 damage, and that's the you're gaining about 500 damage from the strength buff, and you're gaining about 900 damage from the rage component on an execute. So 1300 damage total. It's literally like using bolts on an AoE pack. It's good. It's the most damage you can do, but it puts your potions on cooldown. I would rather use a stone shield if you think you're going to take damage. 2000 armor scales pretty linearly on your expected physical damage reduction at about around 11%. If you have 0 armor, if you have 17k armor, you're still reducing the damage you're taking by about 10%. That's until you're armor capped, which I think is 21,000 armor. Just put it simply, if there's a threat drop mechanic, don't ever use MRP. Ever. Don't ever use it. If there's anything that does threat, if there's a mind control, threat reduction, threat elimination, tanks getting crowd controlled in any way, just don't use MRP. Use this. Use the lip. It will, you can attack while you're lipped. That's why it's so fucking good. Like, it allows you to AoE taunt. It makes bosses ignore you. It doesn't reset your threat. You can still gain and pull threat after the lip, but 6 seconds is a lot of time for a human to make a decision. So you can like walk away. You can fucking Petri. There's so many options that 6 seconds is a lot of a time to make a like in-game decision. Like, would you rather do 1,000 more damage on a single encounter, or potentially save your life and, you know, have time to make the decision? In my eyes, like, there are times this is actually correct, but typically you should just use the lip, especially if you're a newer warrior, like, and you're not extremely comfortable with every encounter and what's going to happen. There are 5 different types of resistance potions. I'm not going to mention the holy one because there's no PvE usage for it. You can go into every raid with all 5 resistance potions popped, all with a 60-second duration by just using one, logging off, using one, logging off, using one, logging off. And if you're doing this, I'm sure you can get summoned, no problem. Just to go through the raids, where it's what you should pre-pop if you're going this route. Nax, you can do these 4, AQ40 those 3, BWL these 2, MC these 2, AQ20 those 2, and then ZG just that one. And if it's a safety one, you don't really need it. It's just if you make a mistake or the raid makes a mistake, just as a safety precaution, you should use it if you're being very thorough. Okay, let's talk a little bit about threat. Okay, Blizzard API threat only updates every 2 seconds. Kind of sucks. There is a add-on I link at the end that will give you your threat that you have done since the last threat update. So like it says, oh, I'm at 2000 threat. Okay, I just did 100 damage. Okay, now I'm at 2100 threat. Like the add-on will say like your given percentage compared to what is the last known tank value, and it like puts it over the like health bar of the mob. I saw Ampy use it. I don't use it personally because I don't DPS, but because you only get an update every 2 seconds, it's really good. It gets really good. Generally on Alliance, after 6 seconds, a single tank will have threat 99% of the time, and you can DPS freely. It takes 6 seconds to have an expected value of 5000 threat as a tank. Basically the second Bloodthirst. That second Bloodthirst reduces a lot of variance for the tank. And even if they both parry, they both dodge, well, you had a lot of heroic strikes that went off because you got the rage refund from Bloodthirst not connecting. You had a lot of rage to do heroic strikes, which have extremely high accuracy, which results in extremely consistent amount of threat after 6 seconds, where you hit 2 Bloodthirsts. So with Blessing of Salvation, you're basically good to fucking go after 6 seconds. You don't even need to worry about it. Those initial 2 seconds, though, high variance. Global threat. Blood Rage generates global threat because it generates resource. Any resource gain, be it energy, be it mana, be it rage, be it... I think those are it. That's it. I was going to say runic power. They all generate rage. Rage threat, I think I have in a later slide, I think it's 5 threat per rage, modified by your stance, modified by Blessing of Salvation. So just be aware that when you're blood raging, it's going to generate threat. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the threat modifiers each stance has. So Berserker and Battle Stance share the same threat mod of 0.8. So that just means all the damage you're doing is reduced by a 20% threat. Defensive Stance, on the other hand, has a modifier of 1.3. Defiance raises this to 1.49, and meaning that with Blessing of Salvation on the DPS and not on the tank, it's 3 times the amount of threat you're doing per damage dealt as a Fury Prot compared to a Fury, which gives you quite the lead. Quite the lead. Execute has that additional threat mod we talked about, but with the base modifier Berserker and Battle Stance, it is 1 threat per point of damage. With Blessing of Salvation, it's 0.7. Each ability has a base modifier of additional threat that it will do, and I put all these values in before the stance modifier, because you can use most of these abilities in any stance. Sunder Armor, 260. That might sound like a lot. It's reduced by 0.8. It's reduced by Blessing of Salvation. So while a Fury's Sunder Armor does 260 flat, just like a Fury Prot Sunder Armor does 260 flat, you're actually doing 3 times less threat with Sunder Armor. So as an Alliance player, you're doing roughly 140 threat with Sunder Armor, and it has no damage component, making it probably the least threat generating ability you can do with a global cooldown in your entire arsenal. Heroic Strike 9 from AQ just does 30 more threat on average. It grants 17 damage additional and just generates flat 30 more threat. So you're actually doing 47 more threat for 17 damage. So if you're threat capped, this Heroic Strike is generally not good. Something I want to mention is Battle Shout. Battle Shout does 55 threat per target you buff. So if you say you had 4 hunters and they had 4 pets and you battle shouted all of them, you're doing 9x this threat with Battle Shout. So MPA is actually quite good because if you're battle shouting 6 targets, you are doing 330 threat compared to Sunder Armor's 260. And if you're doing 5 targets, which is, typical, you're doing about equal threat. So this is why it's about 275. So this is why improved exposed armor is actually totally fine to run. You're actually generating. It's just like if the hunter's too far away and you're only battle shouting 4 people, now you're doing less threat than Sunder Armor. So that's why generally you just fill with Sunder Armor for threat rather than battle shout, because you're not always going to be hitting 5 people with battle shout. Cleave has a 100 threat mod, and Hamstring does 141 threat. So whoever mentioned that, like, oh, I should hamstring when I'm threat capped, it's probably the worst possible thing you could do. It does 45 damage and does 141 threat. So I would not recommend using hamstring if you're threat capped. Alright. Generating resource generates threat. Blood Rage, Battle Shout. This all generates threat. Demo Shout generates threat. But in the beginning of a fight, pulling threat is extremely dangerous because the boss probably doesn't have Demo Shout on it, but it probably does have Curse of Wreck on it. It's something to keep in mind, because a Warlock's first global is their curse. A Warrior's first global, how many Warriors in this call are doing Demo Shout first global? I could tell you, it's fucking none of them. I mean, many should. Honestly, many should. We might make that adjustment. But with the Curse of Wreck on it, and no Demo Shout, and no Screech, that's a very dangerous time to be tanking the boss. And it's also the most sensitive time that you could pull threat. Alright, let's talk briefly about mind controls. Sometimes we just have to do a fight where there's a mind control. When someone's mind controlled, they're an enemy. That means they have a threat table. That means they're going to go for the healers or the motherfucker that's attacking them. Save yourself by not being that guy that's attacking them. Just put the magic dust on them with this macro. It works really well. There is no raid where you need to deal damage to a mind control target. We're not talking about strat UD here. We're talking about raids. Red is dead. Yeah. Except in the mind control situation. Alright, let's talk a little about boss by boss tactics, about things that drop your threat. Okay, we have some things that reduce your threat by a percentage. We have some things that just completely drop threat on a main tank. We have all threat is reset all at once on everyone. And then we have the last situation. It's not really a threat drop, but it's like that, where you just get hard CC'd on a tank, or it's a mind control, a stun, a disorient, something like that. A lot of the time, or a fear. A fear is a big one that we don't really respect because we have fear ward, but fears, when I mean crowd control, it means like, I CC'd you, I'm going to attack somebody else. That happens on a lot of fights where the threat is retained, but because they're feared, because they're disoriented, because they're mind controlled, they're going to attack somebody else. These are the times you're going to die when you're a good warrior. Like if you're really good at warrior, like this is how you die. You die on a threat drop. Generally, this is how you're going to go, or a disconnect. Okay. First situation, reduction of threat. There's not a lot. There's Molten Giant, there's Nyxia, there's Broodlord, and there's the 4 Horsemen. Not a lot of people know about the 4 Horsemen one, but every time you get a mark, it reduces everyone that gets the mark's threat on that target by 50%. It doesn't really matter because generally when you go in on a target, you're going in and killing them, and you're not leaving. But if you're tanking in the back, you're tanking Zeliak, or you're tanking what's her face, Blameau, the French one. She could just reduce your threat, and she's going to the second tank. That's something that can happen. So just be aware that you need to pump threat. These are targets. These are bosses that reset threat on just like the target, right? So like Firemaw, Evanrock, Flamegore, their thing is Wing Buffet. The way we do that fight is the off tank taunts the Wing Buffet so that they soak this threat drop, and it causes the main tank to retain their threat and for the boss to not move. Everything is good. But if the main tank gets Wing Buffeted, that's a full threat drop. It's going and hitting the next person on threat. Don't let that be you. The Chromatic Draconid on a Bronze Affliction does a threat drop mechanic where it drops the main tank. Gurabashi Berserker does this. Jindo does this when he mind controls you. He doesn't. A lot of mind control effects, you regain the threat. This Jindo, it doesn't. I don't know why. It's just unique in that way. Karaju Slayer, they will drop threat on the main tank. So if you're assigned to be one of the warriors tanking a Karaju Slayer, you should seek to be second on threat so that when it drops, it goes to you. It doesn't go to a healer. Oro does a Sandblast, resetting threat on anyone it hits. Battleguard Sartora just fucking drops threat on the main tank and just goes crazy. I think Battleguard Sartora is actually in the third category, having a total threat reset. Prophet Scarum, every time he splits, total threat drop. Bug Trio, every time one bug is killed, total threat drop. Rajax, every time he thunderclaps, total threat drop. Ragnaros, every time he does Wrath of Ragnaros, it's still a threat drop. KT, every mind control, always targets the main tank, full threat drop on the entire raid. Noth, when he teleports, full threat drop on the entire raid. How can you reduce your chance of death? You want to have 2 or more tanks holding their rage, holding their GCD, and their Bloodthirst cooldown, so it hits right after this threat reset. You want at least 2 tanks doing this. It greatly reduces risk. There's just the way the statistics works out, 2 or more tanks hitting a Bloodthirst, a Whirlwind, and an offhand swing all at the same time has a very high chance of being enough threat to hold this mob. To reduce your risk, you can keep your potion cooldown available to use Lip, and be very cautious to attack a boss after it's had a total threat drop. If tanks are playing correctly, you can typically DPS after 2 seconds, and you see that numerical number on the API, 2k. You're good to go. Kel'Thuzad and Noth are one of the only ones that can't be taunted. So a lot of the times our tactics on this is to just taunt lock it and move it away so the threat doesn't even matter. But KT and Noth, they cannot be taunted. So you have to be more cautious on these fights because there's no tank fixing their error. They can't just taunt. That's not going to work. They need to have pre-pop Death Wish and hold their GCD. Okay, there's a couple fights that incapacitate the main tanks. Stalag and Fugan, they throw the tanks in the air. Assyrian, he does a 10-second stun, breakable by damage. Hakar mind controls, dogs stun, sometimes they disorient. Bronze Chromatic Draconids, they spin you. And Nefarian can fear you, which we don't see that a lot because of Fear Ward, but it is worth mentioning. Bug Trio also fears. Gluth also fears. That's why Fear Ward is so important, is because if the tank were to be feared, it would drop threat on that tank and it would attack the next person on the threat meter. The main tactic is Fear Ward or have 2 tanks. And have a designated tank, preferably wearing a shield. Not that important to be wearing a shield. Stone shielded in defensive stance with Demo Shot on the target, ready to pick up. Ready with last stand, ready to go. Okay. Some fights, you're just gonna have threat drops. Let's just ignore all this shit and just talk about Oro, just because that's the most relevant example. You need to stay third or lower on threat at all times on Oro. If you find yourself second on threat, you need to make a decision about what you're going to do. On Oro, it's actually quite simple. Oro can't attack you if you're out of melee range. If someone is in melee range, it will attack them. If you're top on threat and you see Sandblast coming and you're second and you see that guy's going, all you need to do, take a step back, be out of his melee range, and it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter that you're second on threat. It'll just attack the next person on threat. So if you're third on threat, it could still attack you because the person who's second on threat walked away. So just because you're low on threat on Oro doesn't mean you're safe. Generally on Sandblast, you should just take a step back and play it safe. You can pump as much as you want on Oro, as long as you don't overtake primary threat and you take a step back. It's pretty straightforward. Just be aware that when you go back in, they could smack you. Lip delays pulling threat, but it doesn't reduce your threat. Blessing of Protection makes it so you can't pull threat, but you also can't fucking attack. So that's not great. But sometimes it can save your life. Petri Flask in general resets your threat. It will always reset your threat on the add-on, but it doesn't actually always work. It works on almost every fight. On every fight that we do, it does work. But if like a bunch of people are using Petri, weird things can happen. Like if the main tank Petries and then someone also Petries at the same time while he's like thinking about who to attack next, like your Petri won't work. It's kind of like a really nuanced situation. So, and on the add-on, on the threat API add-on, it will always work. And then it might do this weird bug thing where like the boss didn't know you were on his threat table at the exact moment you Petried and then didn't actually drop threat. It's a very, very wonky coding, but most of the time Petri's going to drop your threat, and it's extremely fucking good because of that. Basically, you should Stone Shield if you think you can survive the hit, and you should pre-lip or save your lip to survive. You don't even want to be hit once. If you anticipate that you're going to get killed, like just lip before you're going to get hit. Something that a lot of expert warriors did in 2021, they just fucking stone shielded and they just became the tank. They were like, fuck it, like I pull threat on this fight every week. I'm just gonna wear my tanky gear. I'm gonna stone shield, and it's like, oh, I pulled threat on. This is what my buddy Vu did. Oh, I pulled threat on Glooth. Oh, heal me. Like, we're not really in this situation, but just be aware that you're basically one stone shield away from being a tank, one stance swap and consumable away from being a tank yourself. Just listen to the call. Okay. Oro, second on threat, use lip. Yeah. Okay. Let's do some examples so I can stop talking for a little bit. All right. What should you do if Ragnaros says, "Taste the flames of Sulfuron," and then your main tank says, "I got knocked," or "My Bloodthirst got dodged." "Oh, my taunt resisted." What should you do? I'm blasted. You're dead. Yeah, well, I'll see you. Yeah, I hope you got a dodge. Yeah. Yeah. The answer I was looking for was don't go in yet because you're already backed out. But same result. You're still, you backpedal away. You're good. Okay. Here's another scenario. General Rajax just did Thunderclap, and Mocking Blow is on the target for 4 more seconds, and he's at 20% health. What should you do? Dude, we're fucking pumping this fucking guy. We're fucking cranking him. And then when that fucking mocking blow debuff expires, we're fucking sending the lift and we're fucking shitting on this guy. We don't give a shit. This guy's gonna die. This guy's gonna die in the next 10 seconds. No doubt. We have full coverage. We're fully safe. We're fucking sending it on this guy. Okay. Noth just teleported. What are we doing? Yep. We're looking. We're spamming escape. We're looking at the threat meter. We're looking for a numerical number. We're looking for it to say 2,000 threat. It says 2,000 threat. Going in. 4K. A 4K bloodthirst. That only does 1.7K threat. We're good. Yeah. Well, that's a tank. If you're a tank, you hit Sapper. All right. Let's talk kind of quickly about trinkets. These are the trinkets that you should use in general throughout the game. If your trinket isn't on this list, it's probably like Nifty Stopwatch or you're blundering. I meant to put Nifty Stopwatch on this list, but I forgot about it. I don't have a slide on these pet trinkets, so let's talk about them now. There's 4 pet trinkets that I could think of. There's the Arcanet Dragonling. It's really good. There's the Ancient Cornerstone Grimoire from Onyxia. There's the Book of the Dead, and there's the Defender of Timbermaw. This is a 10-minute cooldown. This is 15. This is 15. This is an hour. And there's also like a bunch of summons from seasonal events with limited on uses. I didn't really put these. Yeah, there's the Barov Peasant Collar. It lasts. These ones last a minute, and the Barov Peasant Collar only lasts about 15 seconds. So what's really good about these trinkets is that you can use them and then swap them, and like you're still good, right? You're still getting your efficacy out of your trinket, but Barov Peasant Collar kind of doesn't last very long. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll just get, but they only live like 1 volleys, and it is good. It's absolutely good, and like, that's good. I didn't think about that. Yeah, the sleep volleys are really annoying. There are kind of 4 classes of trinkets, and some can kind of have properties of 2 at the same time. There's pet trinkets, which we were talking about. There's static trinkets that give a flat buff. There's the offensive on-use trinkets, like Ramstein's Lightning Bolts, or Slayer's Crest, or the fucking engineering trinket, the Goblin Mortar. Don't use that, by the way. And then we have utility trinkets, which are kind of a class of their own, and I call them utility, but I think they're kind of the forgotten category, especially by Blizzard, because the way they work is extremely overpowered, and they probably shouldn't work this way, but they do. Let's go through the offensive trinkets. Just general rules for how you want to use trinkets. You want to have 1 slot be like your strongest static trinket generally, and then your second slot is just like a rotating situation of like whatever trinket you have available. Diamond Flask, Earth Strike, Ramsey's Lightning Bolts. You're just cycling through all your good trinkets, right? And you're just using them on cooldown. That's generally the how you're going to get the most damage. Your static trinket, this is where you're going to replace it with a utility trinket. Like we'll talk about that later. So usually you still want to use your on-use offensive trinket slot, and then your utility trinket is going to replace your static one. So we'll see an example of that later. On-use trinkets they're just always going to be stronger than static trinkets if you're choosing the right one. There is no pure static trinket in the game that's stronger than, like, say, Diamond Flask. Like, DFT is worse than Diamond Flask in certain fight durations, like usually. And if it's worse, then Earthstrike was better. Or, Jom-Gabar. Static trinkets are things that have flat bonuses, and sometimes an on-use trinket has both a static and an on-use component, so it kind of has properties of both. Static trinkets are really popular. People really like static trinkets because you don't have to work very hard to get use out of it. You can just have it on all the time, and it's working, right? So static trinkets are in general going to be extremely expensive in GTKP because they are so low effort to use effectively. The most powerful static trinket is Mark of the Champion. You get this from KT. It works on demons and undead, and it's the best trinket in the game on many fight durations, notably Patchwork. Anything longer than 9 seconds, it's the best. Drakefang Talisman is probably the second best static trinket in the game, but if you use an on-use trinket properly, it's typically going to do worse. This is probably the easiest trinket to get from Raid, because it drops so frequently from BWL, which is a very safe raid to run on hardcore. So patience will get you this trinket eventually. But like I said, this is a very popular trinket, a very overhyped trinket, so it'll probably be very expensive in GTKP just because of its low effort to use effectively. Common argument, Black Hand's Breath, or do I use Hodge? So a lot of the ancient texts, Fight Club, say use BHB because Hodge was bugged until the end of Classic because of the batching window, where if you got a Wind Fury proc or a Sword proc, I guess it doesn't really matter for Alliance, Hodge didn't work, didn't do anything. Like if you got a Sword proc and a Hodge proc at the same time in the same batching window, guess what? They fucking cancel each other out. This is no longer the case because of the reduced batching window. So Hodge is generally the better choice than BHB, especially when you're world buffed. How much crit you have really dictates which trinket is better. Something like losing Songflower can actually change the needle on which one is better. So ultimately it comes down to they're pretty close. And you can't really go wrong with either of them. They're both very good. Seal the Dawn is really, really good. Against an undead mob, it's about as strong as Drakefang Talisman. That's kind of how good this trinket is. So think of it as your DFT. So if you use an on-use trinket effectively, it's going to be outperformed, but one of your trinket slots should generally be a static trinket, so don't go too hard on DFT if your goal is doing max Rammus damage. Counterattack Lodestone. You see this mostly on Hunter bots because you can just fly hack DMT to get this. Parry's good when you're off tanking, but generally it's kind of useless for DPS. It's only 22 attack power. It's good for tanking, but honestly, you might get more DPS out of a nifty stopwatch than a counterattack Lodestone, just for uptime. I put this slide in here. This trinket sucks ass because it procs once every 2 minutes. If it procs more, it'd be good, but it hardly ever procs, so I wouldn't use this trinket. Offensive trinkets. These are the on-use ones. Let's look at them compared to the static trinkets. Okay, so we have Seal the Dawn. This is right here. Mark of the Champion, that's this orange line right here. And the way these axes are, this is the amount of attack power you're getting, and this is the fight duration. So this is 3 minutes, this is 2 minutes, and this is 1 minute. So let's look at 1 minute. This is a very typical, most fights in Classic are in this 20 to 60 second window. So you actually see Jom-Gabar is the strongest trinket for a 20-second fight, but it quickly falls off as quickly as 50 seconds into the fight. It's already worse than 4 trinkets. But there is a period where it's the best trinket that grants attack power. Slayer's Crest, the most overhyped trinket in the game, is this green line. You can see it goes down, comes back up at the 2 minute window, and goes down again. But it stays high throughout most fight lengths. you could see this purple line. Oh, what is this purple line, you ask? Why is this purple line so fucking good? Why is it the best trinket for such a large fight radius? Well, guys, it's a fucking level 52, item level 52 trinket. It's blue. It's your best friend. It's Diamond Flask. Diamond Flask, Diamond Flask, Diamond Flask, Diamond Flask. This trinket is incredibly overpowered. I hope you didn't pick Razor Steel Shoulders from the quest reward. God, I hope you didn't pick Razor Steel Shoulders. If you don't have Diamond Flask, get this trinket as quickly as you can. Something that people don't really think about, Diamond Flask actually puts you on the global cooldown, so don't delay your Bloodthirst using it, but maybe pre-pop it. Maybe use it before the fight. Maybe Bloodthirst and then Diamond Flask. But generally, like, you might just want to pop it in advance. Like, you don't want to be on GCD when you're using Flask. No trinket in the entire game has a 6-minute cooldown like Diamond Flask, except for like the pet trinkets and like Ramstein's Lightning Bolts. I think Ramstein Lightning Bolts actually has a shorter cooldown than Diamond Flask. It lasts a minute, which is longer than any trinket in the game. Like any unused trinket lasts 20 seconds to 15 seconds. Diamond Flask is just fucking 60 seconds. It's out of this world. It's crazy good. Even in full bis, you're gonna still use this trinket because sometimes Kiss of the Spider or Slayer's Crest will be on cooldown. So get used to using this. It's extremely good. No other trinket really works quite like Diamond Flask in the game. Its existence itself is kind of a bug, so you're gonna need to practice to get good at it. Just simming it. This is a 60-second encounter on the sim. You see that Kiss of the Spider, still the best trinket, but Diamond Flask a close second, better than Mark of the Champion, and then you have all the other trinkets in the game. Diamond Flask is just so powerful. Sometimes, and then if it's a less than 60-second fight, just pre-pop Flask as long as global. You don't even generate global threat with Flask. You do a heal, but if you don't heal anything, it doesn't generate threat. It might get you on the threat table though, so don't use it on a Cthulhu-like encounter where you're practicing for Cthulhu. Okay, this is a haiku for Kiss of the Spider. In shadows it gleams, Kiss of the Spider, unseen, powers silent dream. Look at the damage number on a 15-second fight using Kiss of the Spider and any other trinket in the game. Yeah. That's how good it is. That's how good this trinket is. The difference between using nothing and using Slayer's Crest is about 3 times better than using nothing versus the second best trinket. That's how disgusting Kiss of the Spider is for a DPS warrior. This trinket is by far the best trinket in the game. It shits on every other trinket. It's not close. If you are spending gold in a GDKP, this is the life savings item. This is the item. This is the all-on red item. It's so strong. Slayer's Crest. I don't really want to talk about this trinket. It's good. It's good, but it's a 92 item level trinket, and it's off Saffron, and it's extremely rare off Saffron. It's less than 1 in 5. I think it's 1 in 6, and it's just not that good compared to the other trinkets. It's about equal to Jam Gabar, which is also surprisingly weak for how its item level is. But if you can get it, it's very good. If we look at the chart, you see Jam Gabar is actually the strongest attack power based trinket you can get on a 20-second fight. So it has its place on certain encounters. Earthstrike, it's good. It's definitely worse than Diamond Flask, but it synergizes really well with Death Wish and Recklessness, which really increases its effectiveness, because even though Diamond Flask gives strength, which scales, and Earthstrike gives attack power, which doesn't scale, its synergy with doing 4 Bloodthirsts in that 20-second window is extremely powerful. It a lot of warriors have died trying to get this trinket. Don't be one of those warriors. This trinket sucks ass. If you have this trinket, you're trolling. You probably also dropped heart at the wrong time if you have this trinket. Uh, it's purple. That's about the only positive thing about it. Even with Kiss of the Spider, there are situations where you would take it off and put on another trinket. Cycling offensive trinkets is a very high level thing to do as a warrior, and it's something that we look at when loot counseling trinkets. Like, this is probably the most number one thing to look at is how many trinkets you actually used throughout your run. How many Ramsey Lightning Bolts did you use? How many Diamond Flask uses did you get out? If this guy had 4 and you had 9, that speaks volumes to your efficacy as a warrior. Using Diamond Flask more times than other warriors is something that we look at. It's something that shows skill and shows effort, and it's really hard, and it takes practice, and it takes like visualization of how you're going to conduct yourself in the raid, of when you're going to use which trinket. But in general, just make a queue it up, and fucking use them on cooldown. Utility trinkets, there's not a lot of these, but Eye of the Dead, Hibernation Crystal, Badge of the Swarm Guard, Fetish of the Sand Reaver, Life-Giving Gem, and Zandalarn Hero Charm, which is the armor trinket from the heart. What do these all have in common? They don't have a shared cooldown. So you can not use Slayer's Crest and Jam Gabar at the same time, but you can use Fetish at the same time as Jam Gabar. You could use Fetish at the same time as your Badge of the Swarm Guard. You can use Fetish when you use Life-Giving Gem. They just are different. They just don't have a cooldown. They're extremely powerful because of that. So anytime you need health, Life-Giving Gem doesn't care if you're on GCD, doesn't care about anything about than if you're incapacitated. It just grants you health, gives you a heal. It's fucking sick. Fetish of the Sand Reaver, best trinket in the game for a lot of reasons. It gives you a 70% reduction in threat, which stacks multiplicatively with Blessing of Salvation and your stance modifier. When you use Fetish of the Sand Reaver up, you do about 10 times less threat than a tank. If you pop a lip into your Fetish, you cannot pull threat at such a low rate that it's not worth considering. 1 in a million is a very low percent chance, and it basically is 0. If you it's so low it is 0. So if you just fucking lip Fetish, you doesn't matter. Nothing matters. If your tank is playing correctly, it doesn't matter. This trinket lets you attack immediately with lip. That's how this trinket works. That's why it's so good. And if 2 tanks are fighting for threat, which we don't do, which I wouldn't recommend doing, it's 1 in a trillion, which is, really low. LGG has 2 components. It gives you health and it heals you. So the heal, you can get Mortal Striked or Dampen Magic or Amp Magic or whatever magic. But the granting health component always works. So when it expires, that granted component is lost. But Last Stand is coded the same way as Life-Giving Gem. So the extremely OP thing about Life-Giving Gem is the granted health from Life-Giving Gem, instead of that life being lost at the end of a Last Stand's duration, if you pop Life-Giving Gem at the end of the Last Stand, that health is not lost, but it is carried into the duration of Life-Giving Gem. This is not very good in any scenario except duels. It's extremely good in duels. And probably the Nefarian Warrior class call, it's really good where you need like an extended duration of having increased health. But it's just something I think is really cool that I saw J-Law do in a duel tournament that I thought was really impressive and a mechanic I didn't know about, so I thought I'd include it. Badge of the Swarm Guard. It could be the strongest trinket in the game, or it could be the worst, right? It has 1200 armor pen on it, but if a mob is properly debuffed, it has 0 armor on it, which means it's improved exposed armor and it's Torch of Holy Flamed. But let's be honest. Sometimes there isn't even a druid in the raid. Sometimes your warlock doesn't know that curses get removed on Loatheb, and you go a long time without curse. So, whoa, you weren't here on Thursday, all right? Let's be honest. Okay. Badge is 2 buff slots, which was really bad on Era, but that doesn't actually matter on our hardcore servers, which makes this trinket actually like even stronger. It's actually broke. Yeah, so like a common thing you wanted to do was you wanted to use Badge plus Diamond Flask plus Recklessness, get 2 Crusader procs, get crit, fucking pop Berserker Rage. Like you just have like 12 buffs, right? Like you're pushing something off on Era, but you're not on hardcore. Like this opener where you pre-flask, you go into Battleguard Sartura and you fucking Badger the Stormguard with Death Wish and Recklessness, you just do so much damage. You're just cutting through these mobs as if they had 5 Sunders. Any 20 man you're doing where there's no Druid, this is the best trinket to use on bosses. Or no Warlock, use this trinket. But if a rogue is doing exposed armor, this trinket actually worthless on a single target. It does 36 armor pen rather than 1200 on the face value. These are just kind of cool because these are the 2 trinkets that don't share a cooldown with Diamond Flask. So this is how you would get one of these 2 trinkets if you're trying to do like a Giga Diamond Flask healing set situation. These actually work with that. Nothing else does. Okay. This is the section on tanking. This is a very detailed section. I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to extend the seminar by an hour. BRB.
So, the slide about the moons, Booms, Woody Bay, Boon Business. Who?
Hey guys, I'm back. We'll start again in about a minute. How we feeling?
You're a Chad and a true web developer.
I'm just happy that you guys are still here, still listening. I'm really enjoying just talking about Warrior, and this is definitely a big passion of mine.
I thought this was about rogues.
There's a lot of truth that could be applied to rogues here, but I never have played rogue. Hey, there are situations where MRP is useful. Alright. I know this is a hardcore DPS warrior discussion, but I mentioned in the beginning, things that make a warrior really good is their ability to tank. Understanding how tanking works in this game can really help you be an effective player. So let's just talk about some basics, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth. Can everyone still see my screen? We're good? Okay, so players can only dodge, block, or parry when you're attacked from the front. Enemy NPCs can only parry from the front, but they can dodge from any direction. If an enemy or a player is casting or stunned, they cannot dodge and they cannot parry. And they also can't block. Most enemies cannot block if they visually in-game have a shield, which no raid mobs have a shield, then they can block. But you typically only see block on like a Defias, I don't know, something. Like an enemy that has like an RP shield on for some reason. Sure, yeah, because I think they have like a shield on visually. Yeah. But yeah, something when you're casting, that's something to note. When you're casting, you cannot dodge, block, or parry. So what are some things that warriors do that's a cast? There's only one thing. Yeah, I guess slam. It's dynamite. Dynamite is a big danger when you're tanking. If you do a dynamite, you're effectively reducing your mitigation you're removing 20% free mitigation that you're getting, which is parry and dodge and block. You can only get dazed from behind, and you can only block with a shield on. When should you use a shield? How much rage you have is probably the biggest consideration in a moment-to-moment choice of when to use a shield. If you're, say, you have like you're tanking your 5th tank or your 6th tank or your 4th or 3rd tank, and you need to tank an ad in any situation, you can just throw on a shield in defensive stance if you have enough rage. If you have 42 rage, which means you can heroic strike Q and bloodthirst going in, you can just use shield. You just use shield the whole time. But if you don't have enough rage, well, you know what might be safer than using a stone shield is using a mighty rage pot to have that rage. This is when you should MRP. MRP is useful for when you're tanking to get threat. That 45 rage you get, what does that do? That allows you to bloodthirst heroic strike a target to gain threat. That is what MRP is meant for. It's meant to get initial threat on a target. It is such a minor DPS increase for execute phase. It's 1,000 flat damage. You should think of MRP as a tanking aid, not as a DPS aid. A lot of the times when you're tanking, you actually need to use a free action potion. So if you have no rage and you need a FAP, you need to dual wield. If you don't have enough gear to dual wield, you should not be tanking that mob. It's extremely risky. The amount of variance reduction you get by dual wielding is immense. And if you are really geared and you are in the situation where you're fapping and you're dual wielding, be ready to use Last Stand. If you don't have Last Stand in your spec, you probably shouldn't have this responsibility. If you do find yourself in this situation where you're fapped and you have no rage, you should probably use Life-Giving Gem. That's just how it goes. Okay, what does a shield actually do? Okay, so shield allows you to block. Blocking is dictated by the amount of block chance you have. You get 5% block chance flat. You get it granted from gear or enchant. You can get 2% as an enchant on the shield. It also grants you the armor value, but it doesn't do anything against spell damage. Nothing at all. a block, a successful block, cannot be a critical strike or a crushing blow, and it reduces the damage you've taken physically after mitigation is accounted for by a flat amount dictated by your block value, which is increased by strength at a very small rate of 0.02. It is not really about the block value. Using your shield is not really about how much you blocked. The value is that you did not get crit or crushed on that attack. That's the real reason to use a shield. When you're swapping to a shield in combat,